my job is I work for BMW corporate. I travel around the country. I travel around the world to different parts. I do demonstrations and motor competitions. I help facilitate agencies transitioning from the Harley-Davidson platform over to BMW. So I do quite a bit of training, and then I also do competition. So I wanted to accomplish a couple things today. In addition to a suntan, I wanted to walk you, the civilian population that's here, just kind of walk you through a couple fundamental things that are different about the way police ride police-style motorcycles versus civilian, and how that translates. So I'm going to show you just a couple things. There's three primary areas, and we're going to walk through those quickly. And then what you see here is a series of cone patterns. Police do competitions. Well, what is that? What's the purpose? Well, it's to help us really get keyed up, get amped up, try to ride hard and fast, and it really gives us that sense of tunnel vision and emergency, and it's the closest thing really in a safe environment that can kind of put us in this high-risk space mentally, and then we can start to work through that, so then when we run into real emergencies, we can put on our little Zen hat, ride calm, and get through the problem. So, I mentioned three things that are a little bit different in law enforcement. The first thing I'm going to show you guys is the way that we use the clutch. So what I mean is, most people use the clutch when they ride a motorcycle, and they let the clutch out. When they want to slow down, they pull the clutch in. We live in this gray area with the clutch. In other words, we use the clutch to meter power from the motor to the rear wheel. If I asked you this question, what makes your motorcycle go? Is it the throttle or is it the clutch? You'd say, well, that's kind of a stupid question. It's the throttle. No, not the way that we think about a police bike. We think about the throttle as kind of a set it and forget it, and the gatekeeper of power from the motor to the rear wheel is this clutch. And we modulate this power using the clutch. Why do we do that? Well, it's because we have these big, heavy motorcycles, and we want to go really slow and get them in tight environments. In some cases, this bike at idle will go too fast for some of these tight patterns. So I have to slip the clutch. But I have to be proficient in being able to go from slipping the clutch to the clutch all the way out and back and forth. So what I'm going to do is demonstrate that slipping of the clutch, and I want you to listen to the motor. It's going to sound a bit like a sewing machine. It's going to be at about 1,500 RPMs, and it's just going to hum. I'm not smoking the clutch, but I'm going to just show you it is the clutch that I'm going to use to dictate how I move around in here. So let's see what that looks like. Let's see what the coffee did to it. Okay, so right now the clutch is pulled all the way in. I have nothing going on. Now, the clutch is all the way out. I'm going pretty fast. I'm going 7 miles an hour, which is a little fast for me to negotiate some of these turns. So now, I'm going to flip the clutch. So listen to the motor. Nice, smooth hum. I want you to, when I say it's the clutch that makes the motorcycle go, let's see what happens when we give this thing a lot of gas. Oh, nothing happened. I'm still going nice and smooth at 7 miles an hour, modulating my momentum by the amount of friction that I'm putting in with the clutch. So that's the first thing, and that really is what helps me navigate these tight patterns. So the second thing that's a little bit different about police riding is our head and eyes. So right now, everybody knows you go where you look. We've all seen that person fly off the Canyon Road and said, they were looking off the road. Okay, well, in these tight patterns, it's so tight. I want you to pay attention to where I am here, and I'm going to turn around right there. So where do I want to go? Well, I want to go back that way. Okay, well, if I'm going to go where I look, I got to be looking back there. It wouldn't make sense if my head and eyes are at about a 45, which is most of where we live when we're riding as civilians. Everything's kind of about here. We make 90-degree lefts, but when we start making really fast, tight turns, I want to get my head around because that's the direction I'm heading. I'm going that way, so I got to get my head back that way. So I'm going right where I look. It's giving me time to pay attention to where I'm going, what I'm doing. So that's the second thing with law enforcement style riding is that head and eye thing. The third component that's a little bit different is the way we counterbalance. Now, at road speeds, street speeds, there's really two different schools of thought. There is my center line as a rider and the bike's center line. When the motorcycle starts to fall over, I can go one of two ways. I can either counter the drop of the motorcycle and move my weight to the outside, in which case I'm moving away from the drop, or as the bike falls over, I can move my weight in. Now what happens is, effectively, we're trading. So motorcycles turn in slow speed type maneuvers with lean angle. The more I can lean this bike, the tighter a radius it's going to turn. So it's advantageous for me to counterbalance so that I can get this thing as low as I can when it executes a tight maneuver. The other advantage I have when I do that is if it's not moving Quinn's weight when it falls over, it's moving just the bike and I'm countering that drop, it'll fall over slower. So I'm going to get a slower drop and a further drop, which will help me execute a nice tight maneuver. So counterbalancing is a big part of that. Now understand that, don't confuse that with we're going 70 miles an hour in a canyon and we start leaning the bike over and then we want to counterbalance. Now you're going to start dragging hard parts. That's where people get it wrong. Higher speeds are exactly the opposite technique. You want to move your body weight onto the inside. That's a conversation. I'm going to need another cup of coffee if we're going to start talking about that. But in this case, slow speed, counterbalance. So what I want you to notice is my center line and the motorcycle center line and the relationship as I move around. First, I'm just going to stay right in line with the bike. Go over here. So my weight is right in line with the motorcycle. I'm not counterbalanced out here, and I'm not road racing with my weight in here. Right in the middle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start counterbalancing, and one thing you'll notice is the motorcycle's lean angle is going to start to increase. So let's see what that looks like. As I do this, notice that the radius gets tighter and tighter. So this thing will turn a pretty tight radius. And that's all because we counterbalance. See, that's an more extreme version. Other than stupid pet tricks, there's not a lot of advantage to doing that much on the street. So let's put those three things together really quick. I'm just going to show you. I'm just going to do some figure eights. Listen to the motor, watch my body position, and pay attention to my head and eyes. Those are the three primary differences.
Me right behind the ferry.
You'll see my head and eyes are way ahead, and that motor's humming. Alright, so now what I want to do is show you a police motor competition. We have these drones set up. I'm going to do what I would call a sighting lap. It starts over there, and I'm going to run you guys through this. And again, those three things I mentioned, along with a few other special things that I do, you're going to see those things. You're going to hear the motor humming. You're going to see some counterbalance. You're going to see me get my head and eyes around. And I will say I might drop the bike just for demonstrative purposes. I'm not going to tell you where, but just know it was planned, okay? So let's see. We'll just do a sighting lap on this course here.